Ready ji, 80 plus English, 10 minutes, start. Every officer incurring or authorizing expenditure from public monies should be guided by high standards of financial propriety. Every officer should also enforce financial order and strict economy and see that all relevant financial rules and regulations are observed by his own office and by subordinate disbursing officers. Among the principles on which emphasis is generally laid are the following. Every officer is expected to exercise the same vigilance in respect of expenditure incurred from public monies as a person of ordinary prudence would exercise in respect of expenditure of his own money. The expenditure should not be prima facie more than the occasion demands. No authority should exercise its powers of sanctioning expenditure to pass an order which will be directly or indirectly to its own advantage. Expenditure from public monies should not be incurred for the benefit of a particular person or a section of the people unless a claim for the amount could be enforced in a court of law or the expenditure is in pursuance of a recognized policy or custom. The amount of allowances granted to meet expenditure of a particular type should be so regulated that the allowances are not, on the whole, a source of profit to the recipients. No authority may incur any expenditure or enter into any liability involving expenditure or transfer of monies for investment or deposit from government account unless the same has been sanctioned by a competent authority. The financial powers of the government have been delegated to various subordinate authorities. Wide delegation of financial powers, Rules 1978, as amended from time to time. The financial powers of the government which have not been delegated to a subordinate authority shall vest in the Finance Ministry. All draft memoranda for expenditure, Finance Committee or Public Investment Bureau and Cabinet Committee for Economic Affairs or Cabinet shall be circulated by the Ministry or Department concerned after consultation with the concerned financial advisor of the Ministry or Department. A confirmation to this effect shall be included in the draft memorandum at the circulation stage. All sanctions to the expenditure shall indicate the details of the provisions in the relevant grant or appropriation wherefrom such expenditure is to be met. All proposals for sanction to expenditure shall indicate whether such expenditure can be met by valid appropriation or reappropriation. In cases where it becomes necessary to issue a sanction to expenditure before funds are communicated, the sanction should specify that such expenditure is subject to funds being communicated in the budget of the year. the duties and responsibilities of a controlling officer in respect of funds placed at his disposal are to ensure that the expenditure does not exceed the budget allocation, that the expenditure is incurred for the purpose for which funds have been provided, that the expenditure is incurred in public interest, that adequate control mechanism is functioning in his department for prevention, detection of errors and irregularities in the financial proceedings of his subordinate offices, and to guard against waste and loss of public money, and that mechanism or checks contemplated at above are effectively applied. Subject to fulfillment of the provisions of Rule 6 of the Delegation of Financial Powers, Rules 1978, all rules, sanctions, or orders shall come into force from the date of issue unless any other date from which they shall come into force is specified therein. Orders sanctioning the creation of a temporary post should, in addition to the sanctioned duration, invariably specify the date from which it is to be created, except in pursuance of the general delegation made by or with the approval of the President. A subordinate authority shall not, without the previous consent of the Finance Ministry, issue an order which involves any grant of land or assignment of revenue or concession, grant, lease, or license of mineral or forest rights, or rights to water power, or any easement or privilege of such concessions, or involves relinquishment of revenue in any way. All financial sanctions and orders issued by a competent authority shall be communicated to the audit officer and the accounts officer. The procedure to be followed for communication of financial sanctions and orders will be as under. All financial sanctions issued by a department of the central government which relate to a matter concerning the department proper and on the basis of which payment is to be made or authorized by the accounts officer should be addressed to him. All other sanctions should be accorded in the form of an order which need not be addressed to any authority, but a copy thereof should be endorsed to the accounts officer concerned. In the case of non-recurring contingent and miscellaneous expenditure, the sanctioning authority may, where required, accord sanction by signing or countersigning the bill or voucher, whether before or after the money is drawn, instead of by a separate sanction. Competent authorities, in exercise of the discretionary powers vested in them otherwise than by law or rule having the force of law, provided that individual remissions below rupees 100 need not be included in the statements. For inclusion in the statements referred to in Rule 19, remissions and abandonments should be classified broadly.